coming through when the growth look good on you. Best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
What's going on, people? What's going on, man? It's G. You already know the ties, you know the vibes already, guys. You know why we are here. England versus Slovakia in the round of 16 in Euro 2024. Guys, please make sure you are smashing that like button. Please make sure you are sharing and subscribing to the channel. Oh, yeah, man. England. I mean, I'll be honest with you, man. But just before we, of course, get into a few bits and bobs, but I'll be real with you, man. This Euros, and by the way, big up to all the teams, big up to all the, the players, managers, and, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, you see this Euros, I've been finding it kind of boring. I can't lie, man. Like, it's not really been entertaining like that. Obviously, you've had a few games. There's been a few games here and there. There's been a couple teams as well. Do you know what I mean? Like Switzerland, of course. Beating Italy, in the round of 16 already, advancing through to the next round. You've got Austria, who've done pretty well this tournament as well. Like there have been teams. There have been, a couple like surprise teams, so to speak, or, teams that you just thought, okay, right, I didn't know that they would do, this well in the tournament. But as a whole and as a tournament, I'll be honest, man, I've not been that impressed. Like, I haven't sat here and thought, oh my goodness, this is the best tournament. Like, the way that I feel like some people are kind of over-gassing it. But at the same time, it's your opinion. Do you know what I mean? So if you feel that, it's been a good tournament, you feel like it's been dope or whatever, then, it is what it is. I guess everyone's got, their own varying degrees of what they deem to be good or bad. But, maybe I'm a little bit biased because, as you know, I'm not really a fan of international football. I've always thought it was it's too slow paced for me. You know what I mean? It's always been like that. Of course, like I said, you will have like the odd team here, the odd team there, and etc. But as a whole, yeah, it's never really been my flavor. It's never really been my flavor. You know what I mean? So, it's just one of them ones. But it is what it is. It is what it is at the end of the day, man. But of course, when we're looking at England, obviously England for me have been one of the worst performing teams, in the tournament. It's crazy because one of the worst performing teams, they've still finished top of their group and made it through, to the next round, coming up against Slovakia, who have actually scored more goals than England in this tournament. But of course, they've conceded more. Slovakia making it through by finishing third as one of the best third place teams in the tournament. It's like I said, man, for me, it's just been one of them kind of tournaments, man. Like, as in, I'm not going to miss at this moment, of course. This is just up to this round of 16 point. Again, it could get way better from this point on. But up to this point, if it was to end today, I wouldn't give it's not like how the World Cup ended. And even, to be honest, how the World Cup just had so many different things about it. Like, the Morocco story, the final in itself being probably one of the best games you've ever seen in football and stuff like that. Like, and of course, even the group stages was actually, pretty decent. But yeah, I felt like I enjoyed that a lot more than I've enjoyed like the Euros. But again, it is what it is, and we're here, innit? Like, we're here, and we're obviously here going to do the preview. Now, obviously, a lot of conversation, a lot of talk recently in regards to Gareth Southgate and lineup, tactics, who should play where, should Bukayo Saka play left back, like, should Cole Palmer come in, and etc. And to be honest, I hear all of that. I fully hear all of that, because right now, I think as a nation, and when you're looking, I'm talking about pundits, fans, even Gareth Southgate, himself, and the players too, like, they're probably looking at this whole situation and they're sitting there thinking to themselves, bro, like, when you're not performing well. Yeah, you're through, you made it top of the group, and yeah, like that part in itself, you can tick that box off, and it's tournament football, so you're not really trying to go, like, who cares if you play fantastic football as long as you make it through to the next stage, right? So there is obviously one side, but of course, on the flip side, bro, we have got eyes. Like, some people need to like start remembering we've got eyes. This England team right now is definitely one of the worst performing teams that I've ever seen for England, and I'm talking since 1998, when I first started watching England up until now, I haven't seen many teams perform like this in terms of, yo, this is just awful to watch at some stages, you know, like as in when I'm watching England, I'm like, I'm either falling asleep or you're either sitting there and you're baffled because you're like, how is, like, usually when you look at, like, especially like bigger nations, right? Like nations like in England or even like in Italy or whatever. Italy, like right now, of course, they got themselves knocked out, yeah? And when you look at Italy, you're like, oh, okay. Like, they're going through like a little transition anyway. You know, the Chiellinis, the Bonucci's, you know, all of these kind of guys, like they've obviously stopped playing, you know, for the country. You know, they're going through a little bit of a phase. So you almost like understand. I'm not saying it's acceptable for them, of course. Like, you know what I mean? Who wants to get knocked out of a tournament? You still want to, you know, the biggest teams out there, biggest nation, should I say, out there. But ultimately, I'm like, okay, but they're still going through something. They're still trying to pattern up whatever, like, you know, whatever it is they're trying to do. That's what they're trying to do, right? So they don't have, in my personal opinion, a lot of quality players within that team. So I never expected them to go far anyway in this tournament. I didn't maybe I didn't think they would lose to Switzerland, but they lost to Switzerland, right? And I'm not overly surprised by that. Whereas when you look at England, yeah, and of course the game is not played on paper, and I get all of that, but you still look at England and you still think to yourself, it doesn't even make sense how you've got this group of players in the team and it just looks bad. Forget if, like, you know what I mean, like, you know, if you don't get the results, maybe the other team is just better, whatever. Cool, that's not a problem, and you can deal with that. But when you're like, bro, you're not even performing well, that's when it starts to get a little bit like, eesh, like, you know what I mean? It just think things are just not making sense, and I think that's where everybody's coming from. Hence why you get what Ian Wright said the other day about, yeah, maybe we should put Saka left back, and then, you know, maybe Cole Palmer could play on the right wing, and, you know, whatever, because everyone's just baffled. Everybody is just baffled at this current moment in time. Now, when we're looking at obviously the game, there would obviously, you can see here Sky Sports put it out like Kieran Trippier is still nursing a calf injury. Again, at the time of this video, we don't know whether he's going to play or not. We've heard that Ezri Konsa might be the player to play ahead of Joe Gomez in that left back slot. Obviously, there's no Luke Shaw, so again, there's going to be question mark. If England don't win this tournament and they get knocked out, like, for example, tonight, hey, there's going to be questions. Why the hell did you bring Luke Shaw? Was never going to play, wasn't fitting up. Like, but that's a conversation for another day, right? And we can get onto that, you know, another time. But you've actually got a guy who's played left back in the team, and I'm hearing that it could be Ezri Konsa. Now, that might change, like I said, by tonight. Maybe by the time this video is even posted out, that might all change, right? So it's like, I don't want to crash it too yet because obviously it's a bit too early. But if that is the case, yeah, this is why, Gareth. This is why you do not help yourself in these kind of situations. You just don't help yourself. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, why would you play? Do you know what I mean? Why would you play? Ezri Konsa ahead of Joe Gomez in that position? Like, for me, it just doesn't really make any sense. But listen, do what you're doing, do your thing. At the end of the day, as I always keep saying, and I say this about all managers, bro, it's your job on the line, you know. It's not my job. It's your job on the line. It's you who's gonna get scrutiny. It's you who's got people dashing beers at you at games. You know what I mean? Like, that tells you, yo, these lot are not happy. They're not happy. And I think the only way England fans are gonna be happy is if they win this tournament. And they've got a somewhat decent route to that final. But that doesn't mean anything. Yeah, I mean, as I said, anybody can beat you on their day. Do you get what I'm trying to say? If you're not at it, if you're not really on it for that day, yeah, anybody, you know, can beat you. So, yeah, man, in that left back position, and I'll show you guys what my predicted lineup would be. Yeah, in that left back slot, that's I would have a change there. But again, I'll show you guys soon. Obviously, we've got Kobe Mainoo, Cole Palmer, Anthony Gordon, Adam Wharton. You know, there's 4 players in there like who maybe could, like, they're right now. I'm looking at all 4 and I'm saying, slightly all 4 could play. They could, like, they've all got a stake to say, yo, why can't I play? Anthony Gordon and Cole Palmer are the 2 that you're definitely looking at and you're thinking, why can't I play? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, and I think, and again, you'll see it in my lineup, like, this is where I'm like, sometimes you gotta just make bold decisions. Because remember, it's not like this ain't like club football or something where if I might drop you from the squad completely and bring someone else in. Remember, you can still sit on the bench. If things ain't working out or they're not patterning, that's what you bring that's why you have the subs there for. Now, on on one side of the coin, I kind of get it, because he might be looking at it thinking, nah, I need to play back like my best players. And that's where I think he's coming a little bit unstuck with England, is that I feel like he's just trying to throw on all of the best players, quote unquote, in terms of on paper. Yeah, this is the best players. Forget about balance, forget about all of that rubbish. I'm just trying to throw on all my best players and then see what happens then. Surely, with all my best players on the pitch, like, I can't go wrong, right? And it is almost like a safety net for him when I think about it, because in your head, if you don't do well, no one can criticize you in terms of saying, oh, Papa, he didn't even play his best players. Like, we never... I'm playing my best players. These are the best players that we have for the country. The Phil Fodens, the Harry Kanes, the Drew Bellinghams, the Declan Rices, the Kyle Walkers, like all of these kind of guys. I'm playing all of these guys and we're still not playing well. So he might look at it from that side of things. But then, of course, on the flip side, like I said, we've got eyes. We can see that England lacks a level of balance in all departments. Maybe, in fact, in every department bar goalkeeper. That's the only department where I can say, yeah, calm choice. Yeah, Pickford, yeah, he's the best out of, the ones that we've got available for the goalkeeping position. But everywhere else, defense, midfield, attack, I'm like, there's just, the balance is just, for me, is a little bit off. It is just a little bit off in my personal opinion. But again, like I said, he's the one who's on these big bucks. You get what I'm trying to say? He is literally the one who is on these big bucks. So you're the one who's going to be judged by, all of these things. But like I mentioned, I feel like all four of these guys, hey, you could play all four and I wouldn't be mad, because I'm when you get to a point where you're just like, bro, I just want to see something different now. Like, we've seen putting your best players on the pitch, just all of them thrown in, it's not working. There's no balance. The team doesn't look good. We're not fluid. All of that kind of stuff. It's just not working, my bro. I promise you, it's not working. It's not working. You should have seen it against Iceland. It ain't working. You've come into the tournament now. You've played even worse. Like, that should tell you something. That should give you some type of like indication or whatever. But for some reason, I just feel like he ain't really seeing it. And it's crazy because every time in the games that England have played in the group stages so far, right? Every time he's made subs, the team have played just that little bit better. There's that little bit of urgency. There's that little bit of quality that we're lacking. Whether it's taking Harry Kane off, putting Ollie Watkins, someone who's a bit more of a runner, who can run in behind, who can stretch the game. Whether it's bringing on Bowen, whether it's bringing on Palmer, Mainu, whoever, Gordon. Like, the team just seems to play a little bit better. But for some reason, you keep them reverting back to type. And then it's like, you start again. And I'm like, this is why certain men like the Ben Whites of this world and even the Jamie Vardys of before, like, when he was in the England squad, like, this is why certain man just look at him and think, brother, man, I don't want to play for you. Like, do you know what I mean? I'd rather not play, not under this manager, because this isn't a manager who's willing to make the hard decisions, in my personal opinion. And again, these are the problems that Gareth will continuously keep having. Of course, listen, I'm saying all of this, England might just go all the way to the final and win. And then he's going to turn around to everybody else and say, what was you moaning at, right? And football is fine margins like that. You're one win away from everybody calling you, the greatest England manager since whoever it was in 1966, to, nah, this guy's shit. We need to get him out. We hate you. We're dashing beers and stuff at you in the games and, et cetera, et cetera. So, like I said, football's a game of fine margins, and right now he is on that. Like, he is literally on the line of that. He is literally on the line of that. So, like I said, man, all four of these guys, in my opinion, could stake a claim to play. It'll be interesting to see, in terms of what he looks to do, in that regard. And again, look, you're coming up against a Slovakia team. Like, I think when we look at like Slovakia, right, like, obviously they've got like a couple players in there, Premier League fans will obviously know Dubravka, about Lobotka as well. It's man, because I don't look at them as, again, they're and this is just based off of the small bit of research that I've done in behind Slovakia and just taking a look at how they play and stuff like that, right? Like, when you're looking at a team like Slovakia, this isn't a team full of individuals like that. Obviously, we all remember when they used to have Hamšík and that, who again was an absolute baller, Napoli legend, Slovakian legend and stuff like that. Great. But when we're looking at them as a team now, they are more like that. And this is usually the difference. England, I feel like, are a team of individuals because they've got the Phil Fodens, the Harry Kanes, the Drew Bellinghams, the Bukayo Sakas and stuff like that. It's almost like a team of individuals being put together, just like it was in the golden generation, right? But when I'm looking at these other nations, whether it's Slovakia, whether it's Austria, whether it's whoever. Like when I'm looking at Switzerland, when I'm looking at all of these teams, one thing I'm noticing is that they are all very well balanced, because there isn't that, I guess you don't really have that big high profile player. You know what I mean? Like no team, not many other teams, should I say, don't have a profile of player on the level that England have, just because of the English media and stuff like that. They got players that we rate. So I want people to understand what I'm saying. We've got players that we, Lobotka, fantastic player. I like him. Really, really good player. Tidy player in the midfield, defensive mid at times. He's obviously a very, very decent player. But when we talk about profile between him and like a Declan Rice, now I would probably say Lobotka is probably better at the role that he does than Declan Rice is at his role. But guess what? Declan Rice has got the PR. He's English, plays for one of the big teams in England and stuff like that. He's going to have that profile. But some people will turn and say, I think Lobotka might even be better. Do you get like, and I'm not saying either or, sort of thing. It's just more about the profile of these players. Jude Bellingham's, the Harry Kanes, the Phil Fodens, as I keep mentioning, like these guys, because they got this high profile, it's just a bunch of individuals. But when I'm looking at these other teams, you can see they work as a team. And I think that's what separates England from a lot of these other teams. But as I mentioned before, of course, like I said, you got Lobotka in there in the middle of the park. The manager, who is the Napoli it was the Napoli manager, took over from Napoli in February. Until the end of the season. Obviously, Napoli were awful in that second half of the season, in my personal opinion. Even just their style of play, the things that how they were playing and stuff like that, I wasn't really feeling it, if I'm being totally honest with you. But this is obviously Slovakia's team that they played in the last game, and this is the kind of formation that he does like to play, that 4-3-3, and he does like to kind of keep it quite compact, in that team. So when I'm looking at, like, in terms of where England can potentially win the game, I feel like it's going to be quite difficult to potentially break them down within the game, unless it's going to be, again, this is if England go with their typical slow-paced game and, etc., etc. But when I'm looking at, in terms of their average, again, this is in their last game that they played. When I'm looking at Slovakia's positioning, on the pitch and stuff like that, I'm like, you can see straight away, like, in terms of how they actually set up, it's going to be quite difficult to just be able to break them down. You can see more time, or more often than not, they've always kind of got three at the back there. Whether the two fullbacks are going to push up or not, irrelevant, because they're always going to have those three who are going to sit in, which then makes it a little bit difficult potentially to then hit them on a break, so to speak. And we saw against Belgium when Slovakia beat Belgium in that first game. It wasn't as easy, in my personal opinion. Belgium played okay, but it wasn't like, in my opinion, how I saw the game anyway. It wasn't like Belgium was just cutting through all the time. It wasn't really like that. Belgium had a lot of possession. I think they had over 60% of possession, and Slovakia had about 39%, I think it was, possession. Yeah, they're going to have all of the ball, but Slovakia still had chances in that game. It's not like they were just, we're just going to let you guys have the ball. No, they were still able to cut through, that Belgium defense, because again, it's about being compact. It's about being organized and structured in the way that they play. Again, they know a team like Belgium, you got Kevin De Bruyne, you got Doku, you got Lukaku, like you got all of these kind of ballers in the team, guys who can hurt you, in an instant. But on the flip side, as long as we do our job and we're able to nullify some of these kind of players like the Kevin De Bruynes and stuff like that, we can work our way up the field. And once we do that, like I said, you can see in the way that they kind of set up, there's obviously space in behind the fullbacks, of course. So if England, I think anyway, if England are going to get some type of joy, I feel like it might be in those wide areas. It might potentially be in those wide areas. But again, even if it is going to be, we're going to find space in those wide areas, it's about what you then do after that. Are we putting the ball into the box? Well, Harry Kane's never there. So is that going to be a pointless thing? Potentially, so this is where I'm just looking at it, and with the way that England have played thus far in this tournament, I am looking at it and I am thinking to myself, I don't really know. I really, really don't know in terms of how England are going to be able to necessarily break down the teams, if you're going based off of what they've done so far and with the players that they're currently playing. But again, he has got this 4-3-3 kind of setup. Of course, Lobotka in there as that, defensive midfielder, but he's not just a defensive midfielder who just kind of sits in and breaks up play and crunching tackles. No, this is a guy who's very good at passing. This is a guy who's very comfortable on the ball. This is a guy who can pick out a pass further forward. And I think having someone like that in there, something I think England lack in their team, having someone like that in there, I think is going to be very vital if they're not if, because of course they want to win the game, right? But in terms of very vital for how the game may potentially pan out, because when you've got a player like that in there, someone who can almost dictate a little bit of the tempo for Slovakia. Again, they know they're not going to have a lot of possession. They're not stupid. They know England are going to have probably the lion's share of the ball. That's absolutely fine. But you can have the lion's share of the ball and be knocking it about doing nothing. If I can control the middle of the park here, it goes a little bit towards potentially getting, that victory. And again, this is where I'm looking at England and I'm just like, yeah, it's going to be a little bit tricky. It's going to be, what do you call it? A little bit tricky. Obviously, of course, they've got David Hanko. Looking at someone like him, of course, playing for Feyenoord. A lot of Liverpool fans have mentioned about potentially, getting him in. I don't think he's all that good, to be honest with you, but it is what it is. He's decent enough. Do you get what I mean? And again, these are the kind of players that I'm just looking at. Slovakia will try and play, as you can of course see, by their average position. They will try to play that high line. Like I said, you've got your fullbacks pushed up, so that might give England a problem going the other way. Now, even looking at that, does that change my mind in terms of the team that I would pick? Potentially, but you know what? That's a lie. It's not. I'm still picking the same team, because I think I know, in my opinion, where England could potentially hurt them, in my personal opinion. Again, I'm not sitting here saying Slovakia are this amazing team and, and stuff like that. They have got this attacking kind of style about them. So, of course, when you've got like this attacking style, even though it is quite structured, they are still a team who will try and go for it at times, in games. That can be hurt. And if England are, would I say, somewhat patient enough, and if they're going to kind of go through, the way that they have been playing, this kind of slow and lethargic, and they'll have a 15-minute good spell some random time in the game, as I know that they will. Probably in the first 15 minutes of the game, England are going to be all on top and red, and this, that, and the third. But then I'm thinking, okay, if you don't score in that moment, this is where other teams, they start to gain a little bit of the onus. So, like I said, it's going to be a little bit interesting to see, how England kind of, move forward, with that. So, obviously, this is my this is my line. I'm not even my prediction, because I don't think he'll play this team at all. But this is the team I've obviously gone with. So, of course, you got Pickford in goal. I've gone with Joe Gomez instead. I think it makes the most sense. I think Gareth would be an idiot to play Konza. Stones Gay, and I've gone with Trent Alexander-Arnold. Yes, I have dropped Kyle Walker. I don't feel like he's added anything to the team. I like Kyle Walker, by the way. I think he's a top right back, or top fullback anyway. And I think he's a top player. But again, in my opinion, I'm just looking at this as more of a needs must type of situation, in terms of, well, what do I need and what do I want from my defense, kind of thing. And I just think having Trent there, who can, of course, do the thing where he wants to push into the midfield and push a little bit further forward, I think that's better for England. I think it gives England a bit more than whatever Kyle Walker's, like outside of the pace, that. And listen, I think Kyle Walker's a better defender, than Trent Alexander-Arnold, but I don't feel like that's what England are missing. I don't look at the team and think, yeah, like they're missing, like we're not up against like Mbappe. Do you know what I mean? Then I'm like, okay, now you play him, because Trent will get burned every single day of the week. That's obviously obvious, no problem. Everyone else would get burned in that position. We're not up against that kind of threat. So in my eyes, I'm just like, well, why not play someone like a Trent, who does, of course, want to do that inverted thing and stuff like that? Cool, fair enough. Guess what? You can then switch the rest of the three, Gay, Stones, and Gomez, into a back three if you needed to do that. You get what I'm trying to say? Gomez left-sided centre-back, Stones central, and then you've got Gay as the right-sided centre-back, who's obviously covering, doing the Konate role and covering for Trent Alexander-Arnold. In the middle of the park, I've actually gone with Wharton and Declan Rice. As I mentioned, when you've got Lobotka in the middle there, who I feel, if given the opportunity, will be able to dictate the tempo within that, I feel like that's exactly what England lack in these games. From everything I've seen so far, that's what England lack them. Not maybe it's up there as one of the key things I've noticed about England during this tournament, is that no control and no control in the middle of the park. They lack a level of like intensity within there, outside of maybe Declan Rice providing that level of intensity. And more time, he's always on an island by himself, just because it's either Mainu or Trent or whoever. They're all kind of off doing their own things in that role for some weird reason. I feel like Wharton, with the type of player that he is, someone who defensively, I think is absolutely calm. I'm not saying he's the greatest. I'm not saying he's the best thing since sliced bread. No, I do not think that at all. He's still young. He's still inexperienced. But from what I've seen thus far from Adam Wharton, I think defensively, absolutely fine. He can actually sit there in the pivot alongside Declan Rice, and he can pick out a pass, and he's comfortable on the ball, and he can progress the ball. And I think when I'm looking at that, Mainu was the other choice. Mainu's better at progressing the play than Adam Wharton. That I will agree with. But when I need a bit more, I think when I'm looking at Wharton, I'm a bit more like, you seem a bit more well-rounded, in my personal opinion. Again, not to say that Kobe Mainu couldn't play there and do a equally as good a job as an Adam Wharton there, but when I need someone who's defensively in there, who can help out alongside Declan Rice instead of leaving Declan Rice on an island, by himself, as we saw when Kobe Mainu even came on. Obviously, maybe it was just because of the role that was given to him, but when we saw him come on, you saw when he's getting himself further forward, because that's what he wants to do. That's the type of player that he is. He wants to get himself forward, be that kind of almost box to box. I don't feel like England need all of that. I feel like you've got 4 players up top there who can do all of that kind of stuff, and you're just there to provide support, at times. And then you've still got people like Trent as well, if you do want to, potentially push these kind of players, forward. So yeah, for me, I'm going Adam Wharton in there, comfortable in possession, can pick out a pass, can progress play. Again, not as good as Kobe Mainu in my opinion, but can still, do that if needed, if needs be. I've dropped Jude Bellingham. Again, I think he's been awful. Outside of his goal, I think he's been absolutely awful this tournament. And I just need something different in that number 10. And he doesn't look like, he's not a number 10 in my personal opinion. I don't think Jude Bellingham was ever, a number 10. He didn't play for Birmingham in that number 10 role. He didn't play for Dortmund necessarily in that number. Like, he was more of like for Dortmund in the last season anyway, he was more of a floater. So he was playing a bit similarly-ish to the way he's playing at Real Madrid, right? But prior to that, I feel like he's just a normal central midfielder, box-to-box kind of, box-to-box kind of guy. But if I'm just basing this on this tournament, I think he's been shit. I think he's a good player and all of that, but I think he's been dead. And I think if you're going to have someone in that number 10 role, it was either between Cole Palmer and Phil Foden. And I think Phil Foden has been crap this tournament as well. Play Cole Palmer because I think he does bring you a little bit something different, when he's playing, on the pitch, whether that is, off the right or not. I just think he provides something different. And I think he is just a little bit more cuter, in those kind of situations in and around the box. I think he will find those kind of runners. And he's not, in my personal opinion anyway, when I've watched him, I don't feel like he's going to do what Foden does, who, when Foden's on the pitch, the brother just be roaming everywhere. I don't feel like I'm going to see Cole Palmer dropping into DM to try to pick up the ball and spray passes. Like, he's not going to do that. He wants to score. I'm just trying to score. I'm trying to stay in these positions here, and that's what I'm trying to do. I don't need to pick up the ball over there at picking up the ball of Joe Gomez or John Stones or Pickford. What's the stat I saw the other day that Foden has played more passes to I think Pickford. Or Pickford played more passes to Pickford than he has to Harry Kane. Brother, how does that even make sense? Like, how does that make sense? The striker, when you're playing in a further forward position and you played more passes to the goalkeeper who's way back there. Yeah, miss me with all of that. I don't want to see that no more. I need something different. For me, I'm playing Cole Palmer in there. And again, there's obviously a conversation, but I'll stick with Bukayo Saka at right wing. I think he's England's best right winger. And I think he's been not great, in my personal opinion. So there is a conversation, I guess, but I'll just leave him there at this current moment in time. Anthony Gordon, I think for me, has to go out there on the left wing. I just don't understand why he hasn't played more in this tournament. He's England's best left winger. Makes most sense for him to play there. He's coming off a really good season. Keep that momentum going, man. So I would play him. I've gone with Harry Kane up top. That could change. I'm going to see how Harry Kane does this game. If he doesn't do well, I definitely am not going to pick him for the next game. If England make it through, if he doesn't play well, of course. But I'm going to give him that grace purely because, it's the inevitability with this guy. Like, it's like a Salah. like, I don't care about, like, well, not that I don't care, but you can keep playing poorly, but ultimately you are the only bagsman in the team. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, like I said, it's just more for that inevitability. But yeah, that's the team that I'm going with. Again, people in the chat, let me know. Like I said, I've got a few surprises: Jude Bellingham being dropped, Foden being dropped, and stuff like that. Here in Trippier, just more because of the news that we've heard that he may not be able to start the game. I've dropped Kyle Walker as well. Like I said, I think England need to be making more bold decisions in their lineups, and I think it provides a better balance for the team, which will enable them to play better. You can always bring on Jude Bellingham, and imagine that, bringing on Bellingham, Foden, Kyle Walker. You can bring on all of these guys if things just look shit. Like if it's just not working and whatever and whatnot, then fair enough, you can do that. I just think having someone like Trent in there with Gordon, it's like a match made in heaven, man. Like that is the type of player that Trent would love to, play with and play with on the pitch, right? And I think his relationship with Saka, I think like it can actually be a good relationship. From the little I've seen of it, I feel like they have a good little link up there. So again, this is why I would personally go with that. But people, let me know in the chat, let me know what you guys are thinking in regards to that, in regards to the team and stuff like that. Who would you guys pick in terms of your starting lineups? Who would you guys drop and stuff like that? Do you think my team's a little bit wild? Again, let me know what you guys, of course, think in the comment section. England versus Slovakia, round of 16, match preview done and dusted. Let me know your predictions in the comment section below. We out.